Okay, I'm going to talk about how to make an eye from the materials that make up a fantasy creature so that you can keep it all consistent in the color and also kind of a lighting sense, the sense of lighting. So I'm going to use a circular marquee tool. I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key and the Shift key so I draw from the center, and I'm going to draw out a perfect circle that way. And that's maybe a little small, so I'm going to do it again, right there, and copy and paste that to a new layer. So that's all that's on that layer. I'm going to bring it into the center just so it has a little more room around it. And I'm going to hold down the Command on the Mac, Control on the PC, click on the thumbnail so I am selecting just that circle now. If I don't do that, when I run this next filter, it's going to run the filter over the whole entire layer, centering it in the center of that layer. I want to make sure it's centered in the center of this particular spot of the circle of material that I've got, rather than the whole layer. So I'm going to go to Blur, Radial Blur, then I'm going to click to zoom, and I'm going to put in a pretty large amount. I'm going to crank it right up to 100 in this case. You can start to see we're getting some striations, and then I'm going to copy that over itself by Command or Control J. That's going to give me more opacity. I've kind of faded out at the edges. I can shift click these three layers and do Command or Control E to merge them together, or you can go up here to merge these layers, the ones that are selected. Okay, so I'm starting to have the effect of an iris there. I want to also have a little black edge to the iris or a darker edge to the iris. There are a couple of ways you could do this. You could come in here and you could use the burn tool. Very carefully go around the edge of it. Oops, burn. It was erasing. Still is, because I'm in one of those lovely tools that connects the tool to the brush tip. So I want to go up to soft edged brushes and see if we can get it to play nice. Okay, there we go. So you could come in here, and I'm in the dodge tool holding down the Option or Alt button to darken the edge like that. So you could do that. I'm going to not do that for the moment. And I'm going to instead do the Command or Control click on the layer again, the layer's thumbnail, go up to make a new layer, because I don't want to do anything right on the specific layer I'm working on. It works much better if you do all of this in separate layers. I'm going to come up to Stroke, and I'm going to put on a pretty good size stroke on this. It all depends on how much resolution you have. I need it to be black. Stroke, 5, and that's not even close to enough, so I'm just going to do it again and make it 25. That's much better. And then I'm going to come up here to Filter Blur, just a regular Gaussian blur, and put like a 5-point or 4-point Gaussian blur on that. Nothing on the human body is, or any living being on the Earth's body is absolutely perfectly hard edged. If you try and do that, you will make it look very, very fake. So that starts to give me the edge of the iris. Okay, I'm going to come in here to the center of that circle again. It's pretty easy to find. Option or Alt Shift, and draw out another circle smaller than the first one. Remember what I just said about nothing having a hard edge? Feather that to a couple of pixels at least, and fill it with black. And again, I'm going to come up here and do that on a separate layer. Now that may look a little hard-edged, and it does to me, so I'm going to blur, Gaussian blur, and just maybe put 3 on that, because it was already feathered a little bit. You can see it's just a little bit soft there. Okay, if you decide the iris of your eye isn't dark enough, you can always come in here, copy that, and then multiply it. You can always also, if you want to play up those striations, do soft light, and then turn that a little bit, soft light or hard light, and see you start to get some really nice striations that way. Do it again, and it starts to intensify the color. Sorry about that. Just move my canvas a little bit. And then one more time to kind of get those dark areas. And you start to see it starts to be a little glowy and look more translucent when you start playing with the layer blend modes that way, or the layer blend modes. Okay, so now we need the white part of the eye. So I'm going to do a fairly human shaped eye. So I'm going to come in here and just give it that little bump around the I'm not sure what it's called, the little reddish area at the corner of your eye. And I'm just using the pen tool here. You can freehand this if you want. Okay, whoops. Once I get the shape in there, I'm going to hit Command Return or Control Enter if you're on the PC. Go to the gradient tool. I want to make sure I have a white to black gradient, white in the foreground color, black is the background color. Come into the circular gradient tool, draw from the center and pull out. And oops, wrong layer. Make a new layer underneath everything. And you can draw it out as far as you want in order to start getting a little bit of a fall off. You can also come in here to the gradient tool and put in another stop next to the white one. Pull it over so you get a more abrupt shift from the white to the black as you go out. That might make it a little bit easier. See, that gives you more white in the center. And you can even come in here and maybe make the black not so black by double clicking on the gradient. Come in here, click on that stop, go to color, and just make it not quite so dark. And when you don't have to erase gradients, you can just go right over the gradient before. Okay? So you've got all those kind of nice options for putting in your gradient there. If you still want more darkness, keep it selected, go up to the next layer, use a black brush and put it at a very low opacity and just come in and go around the edge like that. And you can even put this in multiply mode if you want, but we're just going over white in this case, so you really don't need to be terribly worried about what it's doing to color, which is why you would put it in the multiply mode. I'm going to erase this little extra blip here because it's not looking much like an eye corner there, but it's a little too obvious. And you're always, it's great to come in here and edit after the fact. You can do that no problem at all because we are on all separate layers. Okay. So that's the basic eye. This part in here, we would want to come in, lock the layer so you can't draw on any transparent pixels. Come in and pick a nice lightish color for that little part of the eye that is, whoops, right there. Brush. And I want it at 100%. There we go. So you could start to put that color in there, and you don't have to reselect it or anything like that. So because of the fact that I've locked the transparent pixels on the layer by clicking right here in that little lock icon, that means I can't draw or paint on any pixel that doesn't already have paint on it on that layer. So now I'm going to unlock it. So let's modify this a bit. We want to go into the iris, or yeah, I'm going to go into the iris and use the dodge tool to kind of play up the light. If the light is coming from above, then I want to put a little lighter area there, a little darker area up here, and then I'm going to come to the top layer make a layer above everything else. And I'm going to just put a little white dot right there, brush, right there, come up to another blank layer, make another blank layer, make the brush a bit bigger, and make that a little bit bigger too. Drop the opacity of those until you get an effect that you recognize as lighting in the eye. I'm just using the the number bracket, the number keys at the top of your keyboard in order to put in the transparency or the opacity of that. You can reshape it a little bit. You can erase some of it if you don't like it. You can move it around. Remember, because it's on its own two layers, that light area. But the lighter part of the iris there, we don't need that. The lighter part of the iris there is going to be 180 degrees across from the catch light. That's the thing to remember. Now, to kind of complete the eye, you would put a lid over top of it. You'd put a lid underneath it and add eyelashes and shadows in there that would match the lighting condition that you've just put in the eye. That would also cover the edges here of that little pink area at the corner of the eye. So that is the basic eye. I've been playing with aliens, so you could do all kinds of things if you wanted to. For instance, make an iris that was not circular. You could always stretch this out and kind of make it more like a cat's eye. You could do any number of things. There are so many options that are very interesting and available to you. But that's basically it. I think the most difficult part is just capturing the idea of using the material of the alien already and then that zoom blur to kind of expand out and get that iris look. And then realizing that everything's just concentric circles after that as far as the pupil and the edge of the iris. The edge of the iris can be more or less blurry than this. You can make it more blurry. You can also come in here, use the burn tool, and kind of bring that in. And there's so many ways that you can modify this to make it look even more realistic. I'm going to just do a few more of these, even including coming in right around the pupil. You can see how it starts to get more depth and more interesting as you start painting with the dodge and burn tools. Really kind of cool stuff there. And just to show you the finished product for this start file, there's my finished alien for this file, and that's it. Have a great time playing with this idea.